live too. He's already got his comment up. Morning, Mike. Morning, everybody. Welcome to Talking Niagara this morning. It is Friday, the last Friday in March of 2026, and we're moving on. Hey, it's gonna be summer next week. You know?
Why? Why is the weather going?
No. It's
What's the
April.
temperature like?
It's April. It's got to be the end of winter.
Uh,
I know.
no. You got to go to.
Where you're gonna go, right? Snow in
Yeah.
June. Yes, I've seen it.
Well, I've seen a lot of snow in April, and that's why. And
Yeah.
people get so disappointed.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but people think as soon as the month of March comes around, well, then winter's over. No. Oh no. I mean, you get lulled in a sense of security, right? As you get nice day after nice day and warm, and then suddenly, no.
Bam. Yeah, I know. We've had some, when you consider January and February have been the worst months this year. Typically, in my time here, I'd say February and March are the worst months, right? The 6 week period between, let's say, about the 28th of January and thereafter is usually typically the worst weather, right?
Yeah, it depends. Usually, I would say January and February are the knockout months, but March can be very frustrating in and out. Here's Gary. It's only because I enjoy you, Wheels, that I will remind you every day that you will be on your city, your voice next week. Yes. I've messed that up twice now, twice in a row. Once I went late. The other time I got the day wrong. I got the week wrong.
Oh no.
So I'm gonna put a big message right up in my house here.
Oh, so clearly Dave's going doolally here.
That's the last time I went at 1 o'clock instead of 12. Yeah. And the time before that I got the week wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. All right.
Anyway, so I'll be on your city, your voice with Paul.
Paul on Monday. Yeah.
On Monday.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Aggressive dog shot dead by Niagara police in police in Niagara Falls. Niagara Regional Police is what I meant to say. Essentially, what happened here is it seems like 3 dogs were roaming around, and one of them was causing a danger, and they were loose in traffic. This is at the Thoroldstone Road and Kayla Road junction area. Thank goodness it's not. It's usually a lot of traffic, but there's not usually a lot of pedestrians in that area. But thank goodness that nobody was hurt. Apparently there was one of these dogs was really aggressive.
Yeah, well, actually, all 3 of them were, and one was especially aggressive, and it bit people. It bit the police. Finally, the police had to get out a service rifle and shoot it.
Yeah.
It was a pit bull. And as you remember, way back when McGuinty was in power, before it went over to Gwynn, they tried to get a law that you couldn't have a pit bull. They're going to eliminate pit bulls. But because pit bulls are not a kind of a particular breed, they are a breed, but not a breed kind of thing. It's very, very hard to identify a pit bull. But these were all 3 pit bulls. They were big, huge jaw. Well, at least the one that they show there anyway.
Yeah, a lot of the problems with dogs like pit bulls is that it's not the dogs, and I know some people who got lovely dogs, including one that you might term a pit bull, and this is one of the loveliest dogs around. Pit bulls by themselves are not necessarily dangerous, but it's how they're trained and brought up.
I think it's a lot of times it's ignorant. You get the the guy who's got a kind of inferiority complex, and he sort of makes up for it by getting dangerous, big, powerful dogs.
Yeah.
And then they don't know how to train them.
Yeah.
They want to show everybody they got these terrible big dogs. They're they're on a leash, and and somehow it's like the same guy that like carries a gun around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't know. It's something to do with. But I mean, some pit bulls. There's a guy that walks around in my neighborhood. A pit bull is a lovely dog. It's a lovely dog, but he's a good owner. Yeah. And you're right about that. Like now, the problem with a pit bull is it's a very, very powerful dog. Yeah, it's bred for aggression and stamina and biting power. So they took a shot. Was it a Shropshire Terrier or something terrier from England?
I don't know how the breed is. I don't know how the breed is made up. No, but yeah.
They take a terrier, a very aggressive terrier, and then they blend in bulldog and pit bull in it, and then come up and then add bits and pieces of Rottweiler and other powerful dogs like Doberman Pinscher, and they come up with a blend where the jaw is extremely powerful. These things are would be made to be pit bull dogs, like fighting dogs. I don't know too much.
I don't know too much about dogs, right? But I do know there is a breed. There is a breed called Bull Terrier, and Bull Terriers are made to control bulls, right? So the cow bull, So if in a situation, the Bull Terrier is essentially what they will use to, control, herd, or do whatever else they need to do to calm a bull down in a situation. That's how that breed was met, and that's only because I know an owner of such a dog. Other breeds have got different purposes. So, many of these are actually should have been 100 and something years ago a working dog.
Yeah. Now, what they did with a pit bull terrier, they took the terrier, and I can't remember the terrier's name, and added a bulldog to it. What?
It wasn't 3 poodles. I've seen boxers working
poodles on steroids.
I've seen boxer working with a bull. Crazy stuff. Yeah, because bulls are quite vicious, and they needed a dog. Bulls can be quite vicious. Again, can be in certain circumstances, and they needed a dog that could calm in days of old, they needed a dog that could control bulls. Anyway, so and largely they're not part of me says they're not consistent with town use, but I think also it's about how they're trained, and unfortunately there's some bad people who treat dogs badly, and therefore the dogs end up being bad like this.
Yeah, so there's the pit bull terrier, and these are pit bulls, but they're not. A pit bull terrier is a breed now, and it started back in the 19th century, and it's a powerful, muscular, medium-sized dog.
Yeah,
but they have added and subtracted additions to this. I knew a dog breeder once who used Irish wolfhounds and all kinds of other aggressive dogs to come up with extremely aggressive dog for guards. He sold his dogs to the Israeli IDF years ago, back in the 80s, and they had to stop buying them because they were too vicious.
Yeah,
the dogs were too vicious. So so you can make some pretty vicious dogs here, and these pit bulls, like if they're not trained properly and their aggressive tendencies come out, then you can have some real problems. I've seen videos on TV, on news programs where pit bulls attack police.
Okay,
pretty much chewed their arm off.
Yeah. Well, this is supposedly what happened here. There was an attack on the police. They don't mention to what extent, and um, and of course they're going to be. Other than talking about the incident, I think that kind of detail um, is going to be at this stage not released to the public, and the reason being is because what typically will follow here will be an internal review of police actions, and coordination with animal control services, and then also efforts to locate the owners, in terms of dog charges, etc., etc. And a lot of the internal review will be, of course, about, did the police officers take the right action at the right time?
Yeah, the problem is these people have pit bulls, and it's because it's to compensate for their inadequacies. I can only say it
Yeah.
that way. And uh, like in my sister-in-law's place, they had a neighbor who was a 80-year-old neighbor, and he had a really old cat, and they would sit on the porch all the time together. Well, some lady brought a pit bull to the park, and it got off the leash, ran right up onto their porch, and ripped the cat apart. It was an old cat; it couldn't move very fast, so just ripped it right apart right there. And then they ran away, and so the lady grabbed the dog and ran away. But meantime, prior to that, they had warned her, say, don't let that thing off the leash. There's children around here and everything. And she just says, F off and mind your own business. And it did get away from her, and it killed it threatened the old man too. So there you have it. You get the wrong, you almost have to have a license to get a dog nowadays. I would almost think you have to go and get trained on how to care for a dog and how to train it.
Sometimes I do wonder. All right. Yeah. And what is, Mike asked the question, where on Kayla was this? Thoroldstone and Kayla area.
Yeah, Thoroldstone and Kayla.
Yeah.
Two of the dogs were returned to their owner. It doesn't say if the third one belonged to him as well.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. All right. Okay. Moving on. Community crew in Niagara is feeding more than 1,500 children, 4,500 meals a week.
Well, this is a good news, bad news kind of story, isn't it? So you have this outfit called Community Crew. They started back in 2016 or 2015, something like that. They got their charitable. I haven't heard of them up until now. They're charitable.
No, we talked about them once a year or two ago, very briefly.
Oh, okay. Well, I do know, like, the Rotary Club stepped up and started providing money for meals. We have too, Kiwanis, when we were giving away our school supplies, the schools asked us, could you throw in extra money for school snacks for kids? Because what happens is the kids come to school hungry, so they feed them.
Yeah.
And then at lunch, they bring no lunch, so they feed them again, and they give them something to go home because they're not sure if they're going to get fed at night. So this is unfortunately, now we have a March break, and these kids, every other kid's happy to be away from school, but not these kids, because they come to school to get fed. Part of the reason why they come. It says in the article that they have a lot of absenteeism with children, but if the children are being fed at school, absenteeism goes down because the kids know if they come to school, they're going to get fed.
Yeah.
So obviously these people are from trouble. These kids are from troubled homes. If they're not being fed properly, and they have to rely on school food, and so they're being ignored at home, who knows? Yeah. Unfortunately. So the good news, bad news story is that the community crew is doing what they're supposed to do and getting out these meals. The bad news is, of course, the need is growing, and why should they in the first place?
Yeah.
This
is tough. Yeah, this is tough, and with kids who are, who are from broken homes, it's life is really quite tough. We have a school student at the moment who, unfortunately is going through this.
School student what?
Who's doing a placement with our firm.
Oh, okay. All right.
And
Yeah.
unfortunately, she's going through this right now.
Yeah. So here we are in Canada, Ontario, one of the most advanced civilizations on earth. Ontario here, we can take advantage of everything from Europe and the United States, and we have a very affluent society, and we can't feed our own kids.
Yeah,
What is that?
yeah. Isn't that a disgusting state of affairs that we've got, that we're in this situation right now, and we seem to just be letting it run.
I bet he's asking, do they still have meal programs at the school? And if not, or why? Well, this is a community crew that are providing these. It's not a provincial thing. The province is running out of money, and they only, as far as food and stuff goes, like I don't think they provide anything for that. Unfortunately, because a kid can't learn if it's a kid's stomach's empty, kid can't learn.
Yeah,
You know, and my father was a teacher, and he found this out himself. He'd get these kids, and they weren't absorbing anything, and he started asking them questions and find out they never had anything to eat for breakfast. That they didn't bring a lunch, and so they're thick. Their brains not working.
Yeah.
So what he told them, he says, "Look, whatever you do, just do this in the morning. Wake up, get a piece of bread, throw some peanut butter on it. That's enough. That's the start. Get something in your gut. You know, if you got nothing else, you got that. You know, and then get to school, and we'll figure it out after that. But you got to get something in your stomach if you can learn anything."
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what we found too. Like when we were distributing the school supplies we got with our when we worked with Staples there and got the school supply drive program. When we started delivering, particularly during COVID, the schools were asking, "Is there any way you could give us about $500 for snacks, so we can give kids snacks throughout the day, kids that are hungry?" Okay, that's what we did. We found we had to do that a couple of different places. Now we haven't been requested to do that again because that's already been picked up by Rotary and Community Crew. I didn't even know there was a Community Crew at that time. Otherwise, it would have given the money to them to do it. But each different school has found that they like to have control over it themselves in their own school. So if you just give them the money to buy the stuff, they buy it, and it's right there. You know, they've already have it. It's in the school. So they'll give the kid a granola bar or something nutritious that's got maybe something to give the kid a little bit of energy, and it's also got sort of vitamins in it and fiber or whatever else. So they know what gifts to buy or little snacks to give the kids that aren't too sugary or something like that.
Well, usually when I went, I don't know about you guys, but when I went to school, we had school meals, right?
We never have.
Yeah. We used to have school meals, and they were reasonably priced.
Well, once we went to high school, there was a cafeteria. You could buy food there in the cafeteria. Yeah. I never did buy anything there. I always bought my own lunch because the food my mother made was way better than the stuff that was in the cafeteria. Mm-hmm. So that's what I ate.
Yeah.
I mean, you get French fries and gravy and that kind of thing. Most of the stuff I saw in the school cafeteria didn't really motivate my appetite too much, but lots of kids used it.
Best teacher at Maya, I heard your dad was. Yeah.
Yeah, I got a lot of him and a fellow by the name of Clark, who was a machine shop teacher. My father was an auto teacher and a machine shop teacher, and JC was Clark was the machine shop teacher, and they got a lot of kudos from a lot of students throughout the years. They were no nonsense type guys. They'd both been in the trades. They'd both been in the trades since they were 15 years old, and then got their teacher's degree later in life. So they knew how to handle working men, and they knew how to guide a kid, a young man. In those days, there wasn't very many women in the trades. How to guide a young man and what to prepare a young man for when he got into the trades.
Yeah,
and so many people, even though people that didn't end up in the trades, gave me super compliments all the time about my dad and
Yeah.
how he taught,
Yeah.
and that's
Um,
why I think it is because Jack Clark and my father Frank Wheeler, they worked in the trades before they became the teacher and knew what it was all about.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. It's this is a tough situation, and they're talking here about they're providing 4,500 lunches every week to children in need, and they saying there's more than 1,500 students being supported by this program, and if you do the 4,500 divided by 15, that's 3 meals. 3 meals they're managing to do to each of these 1,500 students. So three
Well,
meals a
yes.
week, and they say on their website, by the way, every they're feeding kids 1 meal at a time.
Well, it's kind of sad when the kids themselves, no kid wants to go to school around March break, but these kids want to go to school because
Yeah,
that's where they're going to get fed. That's pathetic. That really is pathetic.
yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. Well, it's a changing times in our situation, and it's horrible that we have to be here in society like this right now.
Very bad. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Right. Pitch quarters on the corner, then go by Doughboys in the cafe. Yeah. Mr. Parker was a great teacher at Meyer as well.
Mr. Parker.
Be nice to hear years later. Always nice to hear years later some recognition. Congrats. Yeah, yeah. It is. It is actually good. And used to be. It's like how you remember your teacher, and certain teachers, right? Remember them all, but you do remember certain teachers, and how teachers have a big memory for kids generally, right?
Yeah. Well, I remember my grade 6 teacher used to club me over the head with the thickest book in the library. But I like the teacher, but I suppose discipline had its different. Back then, you could hit a kid, so back then I got hit.
Yeah.
His favorite was take a big thick book and clobber it over my head.
Well, he was preparing you for wrestling, sir.
Maybe. My French teacher.
Were you the daydreamer?
You met what?
Were you the daydreamer in the class?
Oh God, was I ever?
I'm talking about
looking out that window constantly. And my French teacher would pull my hair. Can you imagine that now? Right? Somebody pulling your hair, and she would just wrench my head all over the place. She'd grab my hair and go back and forth really hard.
It's interesting. It's interesting. I used to catch the same bus to school as the French teacher. She lived around the corner from me, and boy, were all the kids in my class, in my French class, jealous because I knew the French teacher better than most of them. But although she and I would agree that I would never amount to anything in French, couldn't speak it.
Well,
but she was in her mid-20s, nice looking, and from Marseille.
Oh, oui, oui. I know what you mean. This woman. No.
Well, I was just, I just got on the same bus, got talking to her, and enjoyed talking to her. Right.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
I bet.
My French was never good, but it is the way it was. All right, moving on.
Mm-hmm.
Go on.
Oh no, nothing. I'm moving on.
Yeah, somebody here had nuns. Okay, Betty had nuns. Yeah, are there any nuns teaching in school today? That's an interesting question. Okay,
I don't know. My mother learned how to play the piano from nuns. She'd have to get She'd have to get on the bus and go all the way to Port Arthur, which is nowadays Thunder Bay, and there'd be nuns there, and they taught piano. There's the only place you can get learn how to play the piano, and they would have a ruler, and it was like negative reinforcement, like, so if you made a mistake, they'd hit your hands with the ruler.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And piano was supposed to be something you did for fun, eh?
Yeah. Yeah. So if you did wrong, they'd hit your hands with the ruler, or they hit you with the ruler. Like, not like you made a mistake here, try that again. Bang. My mom was a pretty good piano player, so it worked.
Okay. Okay. And well, maybe we need to bring back some of this corporal punishment, slap on the wrist for bad things, bop wheels over the head with the dictionary, to hammer the words in place.
I think there's many of us remember getting beat with a yardstick or a pointer. Well, that happened to me.
I wonder whether the lack of this is part of the cause for our next story. Young adults in Ontario experience record low levels of happiness. Clobber them, smack them, make them happy.
Yeah, oh God, yeah. Be a Nazi. You want to be happy, or we will shoot you.
Or Soviet youth.
I'm so happy.
Or Soviet youth come to that. They would be the same, wouldn't they?
Yeah, that's right. You have no reason to be unhappy. You live in a paradise. Start smiling, or you will be gone. You will be going to Siberia, where you will learn to be happy.
All right. Joking aside, recent studies and opinion pieces suggest that young adults in Canada, particularly those in Ontario, are experiencing low levels of happiness driven by the high cost of living, housing affordability, and precarious job markets. Critics argue that the policies under Doug Ford are exacerbating these problems rather than alleviating them.
I feel that I like the substance of the article, but the fact that they're dumping this on Doug Ford makes the article absolutely stupid.
Yeah, really. Because a lot of this
you're blaming the unhappiness of the. I mean, it says in Canada, but it's Ontario, right? We're living in. So you think that the Ontario premier is the number one. It's not helping the happiness factor. That is so stupid.
And typically saying things like high cost of living, housing unaffordability, and precarious job markets. Well, I know Doug Ford's been in power for 10 years more now, but again, much of that started more than 10 years ago, much of those issues.
Yes, that's my point exactly. Like, this is an opinion piece, and let me tell you how it is titled. Oh, darn it, this thing's in the way. Oh, blast this thing. Okay, stop that. my phone keeps jumping out of sync with it. Okay, unhappy young adults are showing up in Canada's happiness index and my family doctor waiting room. Doug Ford isn't helping. Seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously.
So I'm surprised you put this on the queue today, because biased as heck, or what? No?
Well, there is a lot of really good stuff in here, but the whole fact of the matter is that they want to put a political lean on it. And they're kind of blaming Doug Ford for not doing this or that. Like, it says here, young adults have plenty of reasons to feel bleak. Housing, food, student debt, and far more expensive, while job prospects are shrinking. With the rise of AI, social media platforms are worsening mental health. Yet Premier Doug Ford's policies choices are making young Ontarians less happy. Seriously.
Okay.
He's motivated by the dollars and cents of the issue, isn't it?
I've got a person you've got to blame it on, Dave. Watch the screen very quickly.
Yes. Yeah. Well, definitely. Definitely. He's not helping either. Hey, let's go. The peace president goes off to war. What's a young person supposed to think when a president comes into power? No more wars. No more extended wars. Right? I am the peace president. And then he launches a huge, a couple of, well, he's this war.
No. Let's get this right. Let's correct your mistake there. Netanyahu launched a war using U.S. troops.
Oh yeah, Trump's a big dummy. His ego can be stroked. So Lindsey Graham believes he is the one that counseled Netanyahu on how to convince Trump to go to war. Oh God, it's childish stuff. Anyway. But the fact of the matter is here, yes, the average adult, Canadian adult. Now they talked about Canadian adults, and then they switched to Ontario Premier, which is like obviously somebody doesn't like Doug Ford here, so they've taken some details of how Canadians are much less happy than they used to be, particularly young ones.
Well,
and then sort of dumped it on Doug Ford's feet. So they say, okay, well, Doug Ford ain't helping anything. Well, is Carney helping it? Is Trump helping it? No, not anybody. Yeah. You can think of anybody who is helping and who is not. The fact of the matter of the world is like the world is.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Merritt Stiles, the NDP leader, is arguing that Ford's economic policies and rhetoric are disconnected from the realities faced by young adults.
So what are we told every day over and over again? Our debt is ballooning. What did Doug Ford want to do when he got in? It was reduce our debt. He hasn't been able to because the first thing he faced was COVID, and that kind of ballooned our debt even more. The debt hasn't been able to be put under control. But people who write articles like this never refer to what the government can do financially. Yeah. How much can the government put into making people more happy by giving them more money, by reducing the amount of money they owe on their education? Now, we do know that we have an educated populace, and Ontario education, all in all, is a lot cheaper than it is in the States, for instance. And it's a good quality, high post-secondary school education. But they're saying that that Doug here has got to be a little bit to blame for making people unhappy because he sees the dollars and cents of an issue and figures they can't give grants anymore. They can give loans, but not grants. That's disappointing, but that's the reality. Ontario taxpayers can't front that kind of money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it says here that, and how is Doug Ford going to tackle the AI, the rise in AI, and the shrinking job? And what about the social media platforms worsening mental health? How's Doug Ford going to do that? He can do parts of it. I'm sure he can address one of the biggest things right now is we find the addictive qualities of social media are hurting young people more than anything. And of all the things I read in here, that the social media thing is the one thing that's contributing to mental health distress and overall distress and unhappiness of average person.
Yeah.
Not even just the young adult.
Yeah.
So those are the things I think they should have keyed up on. How is Doug Ford going to fix your social media addiction? How's Doug Ford going to do that?
Well, I don't know. He can. I don't know. It's up to a political policy to do that.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
This is the argument they use. So happiness starts with a stable roof. The government's latest moves to extend the 13% harmonized sales tax break on new homes and condos beyond the first-time buyers is a welcome change. So there he is. He's extending the first time. You don't even have to be a first-time buyer. You're going to get a break on harmonized. But, okay, so here's the proviso. But it only partially offsets the 16% percent rise in housing costs since 2022. It gives a step up to a few adults, but it's not enough. So obviously, Doug Ford hasn't helped the happiness of everyone because he only partially helped them out with getting rid of that. And
But
then the
only
young
that,
Ontarians also face food insecurity. So the cost of groceries has soared 22% in the last 4 years. Yes, it has. Reliance on food banks, never happy. How's Doug Ford going to do anything about that? Is he going to declare an edict? Now food must be 22% less than it is now? No, that ain't going to happen. Reliance on food banks. Education, the backbone of Ontario's infrastructure. Beginning this fall, the Ontario Student Assistance Program will shift from mostly grants to mostly loans. Nearly half the post-secondary schools currently rely on grants. The plan to replace loans, putting continuing education out of the reach of many. Well, go anywhere else and see how better it's done. So is Doug Ford going to say, well, you know what? We don't have enough money for the grants, but we can make sure you get a loan at least. And so they're saying, oh, well, Doug Ford just made me so unhappy because I can't get a grant now. Well, yeah, but is that Doug Ford's fault? And then the need for mental health support is growing among young adults. 70% of the agents report that services fail to meet these needs. Addictive platforms like TikTok and Instagram draw users into a world of toxic comparisons, keep people scrolling, spending 5 or more hours daily on feeds, constantly linking lower happiness. Yet, now, how is Doug Ford going to do anything about that?
Well, I have to wonder about this because you said it's in the Star. This main article is from the Star. How much of this comes from Liberal head office?
I don't know. They have a very good. The problem with this,
very cynical about it, but you know why I'm asking that, right?
Yeah. Now the problem with the article is great if you take the Doug Ford thing out. If you took Doug Ford out of the article and try to blame Doug Ford for a lot of these issues, you would have a pretty good article. What drives me crazy here is they list a number of things that make the average Canadian unhappy, and social media, housing, education, things that affect people every day, and what they then do is say, well, let's make this a political article. Here are the facts. How can we make it a political article? We'll throw Doug Ford into it. So it says Canadians, that's Canada, all of Canada, adults are much less happy than they used to be back in 2015. And Doug Ford's responsible, or he has to take part of the responsibility for this.
Yeah, this is mind blowing. Hey, let's mention a few other names who need to be responsible for this whole thing. Okay, let's just pick them at random from around the world. How about Zelensky? How about Putin? How about Netanyahu? How about Ayatollah Khomeini? They're all to blame, aren't they?
Well, they're all making us really unhappy, aren't they?
Yeah.
So here, the problem with this article and the reason why it irritates me so much is because there are a lot of legitimate complaints of the Ford government and Ford himself. But when you put something out there like this, it minimizes any kind of other criticism of Ford, because Ford can rightly say they're trying to blame me for everything.
Yeah.
When he points out articles like this. This person who does not like Doug Ford, who wrote this, tries to slur him by taking an article about the unhappiness of Canadians and then finding a reason to push Ford into it and blame him for part of it, really does not do themselves a whole lot of favors, because it looks stupid and it looks contrived, which it is contrived. The article by itself, take Ford out of it, and the article is very good, very, very good. But to try to inject a political figure into that is irresponsible and is actually kind of childish.
Yeah. And as I say, how much of this has been going on for more than 10 years, prior to Doug Ford's leadership of Ontario. And I would have to say that to me, young adults have been depressed for years, and I've been encountering it, that probably the youngest people, members of our community, when I'm encountering them in the workplace, decreasingly wanting to work, decreasingly wanting to be involved in what people of our generation would call normal, normal activity, normal social activities. They're cutting themselves off. Is that necessarily, is that necessarily a political issue? Arguably, everything relates to politics, but
I would say that if anyone wants to read the article, just ignore the stuff about Doug Ford. So somebody's come along and done some research and picked up on an article and decided that they're going to slur the premier. Now, instead of finding real things that they can complain about, they can complain about his green belt backsliding that he did. They could complain about all kinds of different things. His apparent nosing into our politics here. Any number of things that could be substantiated, but this is just plain foolishness.
Yeah.
And like I said, when Doug Ford stands up and people start to say, well, what about this? What about that? He could refer to an article like this and say, people are trying to blame me for everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he can honestly say that.
Exactly.
So
I know.
So I think on that, like, I seriously would recommend the article. It's an opinion piece in the review to anyone. Just ignore the references to Doug Ford. The rest of it is a good article. It gives you very good facts about what's happening in our society today to people. And yes, people are much less happy than they used to be. And why would that be? And of course, I would zoom in on social media as the number one issue. Struggling to get houses, struggling to get a better education, and all those things. The price of everything has gone up. The standard of living for the average middle class person is going down. Price of food, of course, has gone up. There's all those things, but none of those things can be laid at the feet of Premier Doug Ford. So. Forget that foolishness, but read the article, read the stuff that is affecting people today. It's rather insightful that way.
Folks, we had the greatest times growing up. I'm glad to hear that, Rick.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It was a no worry growing up when we were kids. You went outside and you played.
Yeah.
Right. I was lucky in my area. We had outdoor rinks, so I just grabbed my skates, go to the school or go to the park, put them on and play hockey till I was soaked to the ass and then came home.
Well, I was grateful for one thing in my life. My dad spent all his life in building, and he always had problems with his hands because he was a bricklayer, right?
Sure, be arthritic, yeah.
Right?
Mine are too.
Yeah.
I just had an X-ray on mine.
Yeah. So I'm grateful of one thing in my life. I never had to do that. I could, I still have problems because I'm a keyboard person, but didn't have the problems about my hands looking as horrific as my dad's hands did. I'm grateful for that.
I just had my hands X-rayed, and they're loaded with arthritis.
I've got arthritic. I'm arthritic in my hands because of the use of this deadly tool, the mouse, right? Mine
was from impact guns and big wrenches, so
yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah, but again, it's not about but again, it's like we all suffer during the course of our working life. We just got to get on and do it. We do whatever we choose to do, and my dad always said, if a job was worth doing, it was worth doing well.
Well, yeah. So if I've got arthritis in my hand, I'm gonna write an article and blame Doug Ford for it.
Yeah, like heck. right? Like I believe that in an instant. Yeah. Okay.
I'll blame Carney for my feet, and I'll the arthritis in my feet, and I'll blame Doug Ford for the arthritis in my hands.
And the elbow and the arthritis in your elbow is down to Donald Trump. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
I'm
know,
very unhappy. Well,
that's how stupid this is getting, right?
The difference here is the world is divided into two things: people who think there's a thing called Trump derangement syndrome, and the other people who think there's such a thing as deranged Trump. I'm in the second camp.
All right. Okay. Moving on. Germany warns world economic catastrophe as OECD cuts UK growth forecast. So this is German foreign minister is actually in Australia right now, and he was talking about the economics in the Australian Parliament, and he's describing this conflict as an economic catastrophe. And at the same time, UK's economic growth prospects have been sharply downgraded by OECD.
So what do you think? Is he a negative Nelly? Is he overstating things?
No, I don't think he is overstating things. I think he's using this example as to say, he's just seen the figures for the UK. He's not criticizing the UK or anything. He's just saying, look, this is the situation we all face right now. UK figures just happen to be the one that's crossing his desk right at this moment.
Well, he was down in Australia, and he was talking there. He's talking and speaking in a meeting with the defense minister, Australian, Richard Marles, down there, and he's declaring that he's ready to secure any kind of peace to go forward.
Yeah,
but he's saying this is a war that nobody wanted, nobody outside of Israel well, the United States and its boss, Israel. That's what it looks like. Anyway, so this is a war it appears as if it's got out of hand. Now, of course, Trump has said everything's going faster than normal, ahead of schedule. They've hit Iran 20,000 targets. 20,000. Can you imagine that? In 4 weeks, 20,000 targets have been hit. That is a massive amount of strikes over and over and over again.
Yeah.
It is said that Trump privately is bewildered why Iran has not thrown up the white flag. So they're going to hit them some more. Now, of course, we know that Iran is playing the asymmetric war game by limiting the amount of cargo and oil that goes through the Straits of Hormuz. Although it's been opening it up to anyone who isn't an ally of the United States or Israel. So Malaysia, India, all those people can get their oil if they want it. They're also being charged, I guess, putting a surcharge on it. And of course, this whole thing is hurting the world economy in a big way. Over here, we're going to pay huge amounts of the short-term gain or short-term pain, meaning high oil prices or high gas prices. But Dave, Iran is a big land space. Well, yeah, it's big. It's a big country, and it's going to be very tough to invade.
Yeah, but again,
but anyway, to get back to what we were saying, so what are we going to have happen here? But in order to free up the Straits of Hormuz, this war may expand. Now, the thing that the United States and Israel have over Iran is superb intelligence. You can see that they're being able to kill just about anybody they want to that's of any military value in the IRGC or the Iranian army. They've been able to knock out all kinds of things and hit them all here and there and everywhere. So they have incredible intelligence, right? And they have an overbearing amount of military hardware. But if they start to invade the little islands in the Straits of Hormuz or even the land around the Hormuz, this may bring back a lot of body bags to the United States, and it could escalate it to the point as happened in Iraq. Every day, the whole thing sounds more like Iraq every day. You remember during the Iraq War, George W. Bush was on one of the big ships and declared the war was over, that we won. And then it went on for another 20 years. Yeah. And the American troops are still there in Iraq. Yeah. So it never really went away, did it? The one thing they did do is get oil, and they can control Iraq's oil, but maybe that's the real reason.
At the end of the day, in that part of the world, Iran is still keeping the Straits of Hormuz locked down.
They haven't locked them down. They left them open to friends or other people who will make a deal with them.
Apart from that, they're locked down.
Yeah, well, they're the ones that control it, not so much locking it down. They have excluded the U.S. or Israeli or anyone related to them. Other than that, you could make a deal with them and get your ships through.
And
more and more ships, more and more cargo ships, not just oil tankers, but also cargo ships are getting through there. There's been grain shipments being delivered through there. So they're not restricting, they're restricting some of the things. Yeah. Right.
But again, what German defense minister, so sorry, there was the German, German defense minister was talking to the Australians, not the foreign minister. Yeah. And the Australian foreign defense minister is also said Germany is ready to secure any peace they can. Because right at the moment, at this moment, this whole question about where we sit right now is economic collapse is a real problem.
Well, it's obviously the U.S. and Israel knew that the trump card that the Iranians could play was squeezing off the Straits of Hormuz.
Yeah.
It is, I know you hear these murmurs in the press. We don't know what's true and what's not true, but it is said that they thought that the shock and awe and the decapitation strategy would finish Iran in a few weeks, and they wouldn't have to worry about the Straits of Hormuz. It turns out that the Iranians are much more resilient than they thought. Remember, they're tiny. Their military power is like tiny compared to that of the U.S. and Israel, and yet they still have the capacity to fight back, still have the capacity to shoot missiles. We keep hearing every day that the Iranian capacity to shoot missiles, make missiles, defend themselves is diminished every day more and more and more, and yet they keep firing missiles. They fire them at Israel. They fire them at Saudi Arabia. They fight them anywhere where there's an American military base.
Yeah, one interesting thing that I gave you this morning was Canada imposes new sanctions on Iranian businessman who procured technology in relation to the war effort going on in Iran right now. So they are basically individuals that are buying up tech right now for the war effort. So they're targeting is Iranian businessmen operating here who are procuring technology in support of, they're saying the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, but it could be Iranian armed forces of any description.
Well, that's been going on for a very long time. Anyway, this is not the first time it's happened. It just so happens as during wartime now. Yeah, that's happened before. I think we've even reported on this show at different times, where our Iranians or others are getting stuff that they should not be getting. They should be sanctioned from them and restricted from them. But now we have a real particular problem here. Iran is the one that's controlling the world economy right now.
Yeah,
this war has caused the short-term pain pain of high gas prices that we keep hearing about, but we don't know how long. It could be a long short-term pain, depending on what goes next. They keep decapitating people and they keep killing people, but what they didn't count on was each one of the military commanders in Iran is licensed to act autonomously. They do not need direction from a central authority. The Iranians did that on purpose because they knew that if they did go to war with somebody like Israel, the United States, that the command and communication structures would be among the first hit, and they would be dismantled. So each different commander has autonomous, can act autonomously, which, and so you got to wonder why, like after 20,000 hits, they're still firing missiles. They're not hitting American ships with their missiles, but they're shooting them at them and drones, and they're hitting oil fields, and they're hitting Israel a lot with cluster bombs and whatever else. So you got to say to yourself, now it's been 4 weeks, 20,000 hits, and they're still holding the Straits of Hormuz. The American Navy has not gone in there. They said they would open it up like they did back in the 80s, but they're afraid to because they don't know what weapon capabilities that the Iranians have. So Trump wants our military, wants the UK and France to send their ships through there. Oh yeah, well, if you're not sending yours, we're not sending ours.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, what they're doing, what Trump is doing here, by these kind of actions and saying, "Hey, you help me," is he's actually causing fractions within the Allied forces anyway.
I'll put this out to you. How long do you think Trump is going to last? I don't think the Republican Party is going to let him keep going. They're going to find an excuse to get rid of him. They're going to say a health thing. They're going to say that he's got Alzheimer's. I don't know, whatever. He's acting like he's got Alzheimer's right now, or some sort of dementia. I don't know. I think Vance or Rubio or a cabal of Republicans are going to find a reason to sideline Trump, and I think it's going to happen this year sometime. Well, because he got himself into this mess. Right now, he promised no boots on the ground, but it looks like that's the only option left to him.
Well, and they've had up to
100,000 troops available to initiate a land operation.
Well, at the
probably on the islands in the Straits of Hormuz.
But as I understand it, at the moment, as I'm reading this, they're currently at about 70 to 80,000 troops in the area, ready to invade, and they're building up to 100,000 troops before they would dare enter that zone.
I think they will do a pretty good job when they're there. They'll probably take out the little islands that are there, so they have headquarters and military states. Some of those islands have very few people or no people at all on them, so they can be secured very quickly. The bigger ones like Keshem, like we talked about yesterday, they got 150,000 people living there. That'd be much tougher. But if they secure a lot of the smaller islands, that'll give them a staging point, and they may be able to limit because the key here is the Straits of Hormuz. If the United States controls the Straits of Hormuz, then they are the ones that control the flow of oil, and they will be the most powerful country when it comes to oil, because they then will control oil flow. And that seems to be a lot of what Trump's after. Venezuela, right, and Iran oil thing. Oil is a big thing. It is, if oil is controlled by the United States will continue to be the most powerful country in the world.
One thing, dare I say, that if Trump controls Venezuelan oil and controls Iranian oil, he doesn't need Canadian oil.
No, he'll take it. He'll take it. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about it for domestic purposes. They have plenty of their own. They're the world's largest producer. They don't need anybody else's oil. But what they do need to do is control the oil and make sure that it's bought in U.S. funds. that is essential for the foundational power of the United States. The petrodollar is the American dollar. And if that is not controlled by the United States, then it weakens their footprint on the world.
Yep.
Everyone has to buy US dollars in order to buy oil. If they control the flow of oil, everybody has to maintain that.
Yep.
They cannot buy it in Chinese yuan. They cannot buy it in euros. They have to buy it.
Well, that's why at the moment, of course, Iran is taking payment in yuan.
Well, yeah, they're making like that out, but the United States is not going to put up with that, and I think that probably is the now is the motivation to hold, because the Straits of Hormuz are what is the only thing that Iran has over the world right now is the control of the Straits of Hormuz.
All right,
if the U.S. gets that, then Iran is finished, and the United States becomes even more powerful because they're the ones that are controlling oil.
Yeah, and we're going to have to leave it at that point.
Okay, without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace, and I bring Gaza up every time because Gaza is a nightmare. It still is. People are still not being fed properly. They're not still being housed properly. There's a buffer zone there where they pushed all the people into a smaller and smaller area. The Greater Israel Project is alive and well, and Gaza might be one of the first victims of that. Southern Lebanon seems to be going to be the next.
Well, I was just going to say Lebanon next. They already seem to be making major advances in Lebanon. We need to talk about that next week.
Yeah, they've always put a thirsty eye on the Litani River up there. It's something they've tried to go for a long time. And they're also now beginning, they figure once Iran's out of the way, they can start working on Turkey. So anyway, without further ado, I bid you adieu. Do not forget Gaza. It has, whatever you think, I think it was a genocide, but the very least it could be was a total disaster and humanitarian nightmare. Peace, everyone.
All right. And Dave? I think Dave. All right, give him one more time because he likes to sign out. Dave? Looks like we've lost Dave. Okay. Well, we will just basically sign out and say thank you very much, everybody, and have a good weekend. And don't have nightmares about this stuff.